It's a great pleasure to welcome now our next speaker, Michael Stipe. Michael Stipe is an artist, producer, and singer, songwriter. He fronted the band R.E.M. for 31 years. He's also a film producer, and since '87 has made over 25 feature films. This includes Spike Jonze, Being John Malkovich, Todd Haynes' Velvet Goldmine. His focus in the past 7 years is on sculpture and a lot of cross-medium work. This includes bronze, plastic, cardboard, photography, film, and also digital imagery. He's bringing all these different dimensions together in a book, Fear of the Empty, which will be released in autumn 2013 by Rizzoli. Michael lives in New York City and Athens, Georgia. Michael Stipe's participation today is called Michael Stipe, Michael Stipe, Michael Stipe. A very, very warm welcome to Michael Stipe.
Hello, hi. All right. In my former job as an international pop star, I was performing a few songs with my band at an Italian live broadcast television award show in San Remo. The venue was cramped, particularly backstage. I was taken to my dressing room upon arrival at the show, and the name on the door said Mr. Gorbachev. I said, there must be some mistake. They said, no, you are sharing a room with Mr. and Mrs. Gorbachev. So I said, okay. What they didn't tell me is that Mr. and Mrs. Gorbachev and I would also be sharing a room with Cher. And so, in one of the highlights of my surreal 31-year career as a pop singer, I shared a dressing room in Italy one evening with Mikhail and Raisa Gorbachev and Cher. The sign on the door was altered to read, Mr. Gorbachev, Mr. Stipe, Cher. I wish I had stolen it, but I didn't. Douglas Copeland said to me that if you wanted to be remembered in 100 years, invent a hairstyle. He said that Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, and Andy Warhol had all done this, and that they would certainly be remembered in 100 years. I was the first public figure to shave my head, and then when asked why, to say, because I'm going bald, my hair is thinning. And I thought it was better to just say it and take it all off and be bald. At that point, there wasn't much left to not say. My privacy had become a thing of the past. This honesty was, I suppose, not evident in any bald people before me. Telly Savalas, the Harlem Globetrotters, Sinead O'Connor, who is a woman and Irish, so her reasons for being bald were very different. The odd mean skinhead or delusional killer, and of course Yul Brynner, one of my personal heroes. But soon after I changed the world forever with my bald statement, it became very acceptable to shave your head when you were going bald. And many people followed, lots of pop stars and singers, and then anchormen and actors and lesbians, and suddenly half the world's population was bald and proud. My head gets really cold really easily when other people's don't. I hope that I am remembered in 100 years, and if that is my contribution, then there it is. So thank you to Douglas Copeland. 50 years and 10 days ago, I had my first memory in the afternoon of October 3rd, 1962. I contracted scarlet fever when I was 2 years old. My first memory was of my baby sister coming to the car. Can you hear me? All right. My first memory was of my baby sister coming to the car in the hospital parking lot when it was time for her to come home. My second memory, 2 months later, was of a photographer asking me to smile for a Christmas photo. I was hallucinating with the scarlet fever, and it all looked like a 1960s drug movie. It was 1962, but before drugs, really. I was wearing a Christmas sweater and posing in front of a fireplace with my newborn sister and my older sister. One was smiling, one was too young to do anything at all. I look at that picture now and I wonder how all those things could have happened inside my enormous child's head. My forehead was big enough to screen a movie on. It was really big. My eyes looked meaningful, although I was comically miserable. Scarlet fever was really no fun at all. But it meant that my second memory ever was hallucinatory. It is my belief that memory is our only real contribution to the universe after our death. That our memories, however banal or meaningful, gathered throughout our lifetime, that memories go on to become the fuel that powers the energy that allows the universe to be as vast and fantastic as we imagine it is. I remember that my grandfather, Pappy, sent me a postcard of a pelican. He said that it was warm and there wasn't much to say. He would see me soon. He died when I was 7 years old, living in Germany, and I never saw him again. I loved him very much. Michael Stipe, Michael Stipe, Michael Stipe. He addressed the card to Michael Stipe. It was May of 1967. It was the first time anyone had ever called me Michael, except for my mother or father, when they were angry and would use my full name. Later that year, I went to first grade, and my teacher, Mrs. Fujimoto, called me John Michael to differentiate me from all the other Michaels in the class. I wanted to be exotic, so I told my classmates that the birthmark on my left leg was in the shape of the island that I was born on, and that my full name was Jonathan Michelangelo Stipe III. Jonathan Michelangelo Stipe III. Michael Stipe, Michael Stipe, Michael Stipe. I remember standing against a tree screaming. No one came, and I can't blame them. I would have ignored me too. I thought that to be a rebel and to be rebellious, I should defy all lessons learned, so I sat backwards on the toilet when I went to the bathroom to pee or to poop, with the toilet seat up, sat on the porcelain rim rather than the seat, facing the wall. I would face the wall and flip it off with not a true birdie, but a tiny hands version of that. I was quite young. I couldn't get my fingers to do the right thing, so I just modified it into a fist with my middle finger not in it. I would later, walking home from school, flip off both sides of the street every day, over and over again, from the middle of the road while screaming the word fuck over and over again. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew that it was rebellious and that I was a rebel. I never got caught. Once on that same street, the wind was so high that the neighbor boy said it picked him up and he flew. I was obsessed with trying to fly too, so I stood on the edge of hills and would wait for the wind. There was a girl who would dance naked in her front window. She would wait until the adults left, and then she would pull the curtain all the way open and dance for all the kids. Me and the other boys would sit behind the bushes and wipe our butts with leaves, and we would pee in a jar that was always there and try to fill it every weekend. This was at the big kids' school next to my apartment building in Germany, where it was rumored that the Beatles had attended 3rd to 5th grade, and Adolf Hitler had an enclave there as well. Every weekend we would almost get the jar filled with pee, but then Monday would come, and after school we would rush to the bushes to find the jar empty but still there. Our challenge began again the next Friday. There was a swamp behind our apartment building and railroad tracks beyond that. There was a gypsy camp beyond that. We were told that the swamp was filled with terrible things and that the gypsies kidnapped little boys. There was a little boy who stole explosives, and because they looked like toy soldiers, he buried them all over the backyard. We were taught not to pick up things that looked like ballpoint pens because they might explode in our hands. I learned how to write with a pencil after that. It was the same year that I learned that I could not read the clock and I could not see the blackboard. My teacher, Mrs. Swindle, wore glasses and I did not. She told my parents that I needed glasses. She kept moving me one row closer to the front of the room, and I still couldn't read the blackboard. There was a school band and not enough electronic organs for everyone who wanted to play electronic organ, including myself. So my friend and I had to play accordion instead. We didn't have many parts to play, so I asked the teacher, Mrs. Swindle, if, when not playing, we could shout out beatnik phrases. She said yes. Go daddy-o, slip me some skin, het cat. Yeah, man, yeah. There was a picture that ran in the local newspaper, the first time I was ever in a newspaper. I loved it. But my mouth is open and I'm shouting with all my heart, go man, go. My grandparents let us sleep on the floor of the living room, and my parents woke us up, my sisters and I, when the first man set foot on the moon. It was hot. It was South Georgia in a swamp. Everything smelled like my grandparents' house, wondrous and close and dusty. The TV was in the corner of the room on a TV stand. It was black and white. They woke me quietly, calling my name, Mike. Mike, wake up. Mike, wake up, it's the moon landing. They finally put a man on the moon. The television screen had rounded corners, and we were all watching, me and my sisters, sleepy-eyed on the floor, propped up on pillows on the dusty rug. Looking up at the TV, I felt completely and totally within myself at that moment, like when you stare at the stars. I moved from Texas in 1973, and I had a very strong Texas accent. I moved to the Midwest from Texas. I had long eyelashes, and I was a little faggy and chubby. The way I walked was not like all the other boys. They called me the Maybelline Cowboy. It hurt my feelings very much. I worked really hard to lose my accent. I cut my eyelashes, but they grew back. I was okay finally, but in the moment it was tough. I was on my way to becoming a different person, named Michael Stipe. So, in my opinion, my most successful song lyrics were a series of lists. And so I'm going to break my program for a moment and just read a list of things that did not make it into tonight's program. And it's short. Well, the Man on the Moon actually made it in, so I won't read that. Well, I will read it. I'll start with it. Man on the Moon, Disco, Cream Magazine, The Village Voice Magazine, the United Methodist Church, the Army, the 9th Cavalry, Germany, Texas, Athens, Georgia, East St. Louis, and Piss, and Lesbians with Cameras, the Gay Bar and the Magazine, and the Bathroom Pee Trough, and Sonny and Char's, and Sonny and Cher. Music, first girl sex, first boy sex, first man sex, first woman sex, hypothermia, lightning, near deaths, AIDS, Reagan and the homeless boom, Jesse Helms in Miami, West-Dade County, Marlon Brando, the United Nations, the Concorde, the Dewey Decimal System, Goat Ropers, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the Warhol movies, Elephant Man, the film, Eraserhead, the Scientology kidnappings, pot, Quaaludes, the Punk House, three-way sex, spaghetti with butter, and haircuts over the floor heater, John Giorno, William Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, and Patti Smith. The little boy looked up with such a naked joy. Actually, the little boy's face lit up with such naked joy, as remembered. 1975, I have seen things that you will never see. Actually, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Femme Fatale, the song by the Velvet Underground. Celebrity, the idea of cool and rebellion and outsiders. The Island of Broken Toys, actually, Island of Misfit Toys from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Ouija, Warhol, again, Brancusi, Picasso, but not in that order, Clay and Bauhaus, Joseph Albers, Outsider Art, Preachers, and the Whole Earth Catalog. In 1978, I went to see David Lynch speak after a screening of my favorite film at the time, Eraserhead. I drove my 1976 gray Honda Civic from our White Flight suburban town outside East St. Louis near the Cahokia Mounds Indian Mound site, across the Mississippi River into St. Louis to the urban campus of Webster Groves College. It was, the audience was me, a fake punk, a few real punk rockers, and a bunch of hippies in pajamas and army helmets. David Lynch never showed up. I walked into a prematurely air-conditioned supermarket with lots of aisles and lots of swim caps decorated in red, yellow, and blue. I had no intention of buying one, but it reminded me that I had neglected the beach or forgotten to go to the beach. Actually, I was reminded of the fact that I had been avoiding the beach. Einstein on the Beach was the background music to the first real love affair I ever had. I was the other man, though, and it was short-lived, but my obsession ran deep enough that I would find reasons to bicycle or wander by the house at all hours of the day, hoping to catch a glance at the object of my desires, an older-than-me man who was very handsome. I didn't realize until years later that the music and vocal arrangement had locked into me, and it was while at a benefit concert at Carnegie Hall, decades later, that an excerpt of Einstein on the Beach was performed, and I burst into tears without knowing why and was inconsolable to the people around me. I didn't know them very well, and it was hard to explain, so they just patted me on the back and tried to help silence my sobbing. It was funny and shocking and revelatory all at once, and embarrassing, so thank you, Philip Glass, for that. Later, after the concert, the grandson of Leonard Bernstein introduced himself to me, and I hoped that his family liked my reference to his grandfather in the song, "It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine," and they did like it, and we laughed. I was relieved. I had a kidney stone one day in New York, in the West Village, in the meatpacking district. I lay down on the floor of my apartment, and I couldn't get up. I didn't understand what was happening to me, but I was pretty sure I wouldn't die. I made it downstairs and onto the street waiting for a cab. I kept fainting on the sidewalk. The mailman came to me. He only knew me by my last name and said, Stipe, are you okay?" I couldn't answer, but I fainted again and again. When I got to the emergency room, finally, they asked me my name. I couldn't tell them. I was in so much pain. Michael Stipe is my name. They gave me morphine, enough for 3 hockey players. The doctor later told my friend, and I finally rested. Both my doctors, both mothers, each told me separately, the pain is worse than childbirth. 3 months later, I was in an anonymous, brilliant, white bathroom in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was peeing. I heard a little tink against the porcelain, and there it was in the toilet bowl, my kidney stone. It looked like a miniature Cro-Magnon weapon. It was so jagged and horrible. I scooped it up out of the toilet and dried it and took it in a little envelope to Douglas Copeland's house. And we went into his studio and scanned it against some bubble wrap that he had. And we blew it up and looked at it really big. He said it looked angry, and it did. He was right. I still have that scan, but I threw away that angry little javelin tip that came out of me. And finally, it's the same with Michael Stipe. It's the same with Michael Stipe. There was another Michael. He wrote a song, and at the end of the song, repeated a phrase that sounded like, it's the same with Michael Stipe. I told people that he was singing about me. I once told someone that is how I bankrolled my band's early years, which is a ludicrous and audacious lie. I didn't think anyone would believe that, but they did. I still feel a little bad about that lie. My name is Michael Stipe. I am the man in front of you, and that's how I arrived here. Thank you very much. Good night.